So you're not something. Yeah. All right, we are beginning. Shh. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. Decoding the Talmud. Lesson number 5. Second. So, we're going to have a really fun time today. Hope everyone is prepared. Today, we're going to do some real hardcore Talmud study, if you're ready for that. I do have to leave right after the class, so just letting you know. This is not what I need. It's not showing up. Let's do this again. Okay, here we are. Decoding the Talmud. And today we're doing how the Talmud thinks. The unique method, logic. This is today's discussion. Thank you, Shirley, for the projector. Okay, let's begin. Lesson number 5. So we got this week and next week. We are on page 173 in your book. Today's going to be a little bit different than the previous classes, where last week we were talking more about what is about the Talmud, explaining what the Talmud is, whereas today we're going to actually delve in to see for ourselves the Talmudic logic and give you a taste of what that is. So if you want to put it another way, until now we were talking about the story, now we are the story. We're actually going to be part of that. We're going to look at Talmudic thinking, the challenging thought that goes into it, the deep logic, and to be able to get used to it, to understand it. This is what they say, a Yiddish cup, to always have a way of working. You know, they say a Cossack was on a train, and he asked the Jew in the compartment in the train to share the legendary Jewish brain. And so he says, you know what it comes from? It comes from the fact that we eat lots of good schmaltz herring. So he says, really, schmaltz herring? He said, yeah. You want to try it out? I actually happen to have a little jar of schmaltz herring in my bag. He says, wow, that's cool. Let me try some. He says, no problem. I'll give it to you for 7 rubles. 7 rubles. All right. I'll become smart for 7 rubles. Okay. He takes it, he tries it. He says, this is delicious, but does this really make me smart? He says that at the next stop, they get off and, they step outside for a few minutes, walk around the town. And he comes back and he's furious and tells the Jew, he says, I don't understand. The same schmaltz herring they're selling here for 3 rubles. You sold it to me for 7. He says, you see, it's working already. So this is Talmudic logic. Talmudic logic is taking things that sometimes look like this and turn it like this. We'll give a warning here. The Gemara is hard. It takes a lot of hard work. It requires us to strain our minds and to follow the twists and turns of logic. See, I want to explain something. the way most people study, and especially in America, but not in Western universities and Western education, which is nothing wrong, but it's just the style is that you're basically sitting in front of a professor or whoever that is, or a teacher that is giving you information and lecturing you exactly. So the problem is that they aren't actually helping the student to learn on their own and to understand on their own. When a student goes to yeshiva, they are now learning how to learn. Okay, you're learning how to learn. That is a skill that you need to learn, that you have to grow on, that you have to establish how to learn, not only the information that's being taken in. And the Gemara is, in a certain way, like our teacher. When you have the Gemara, it is helping us to show us, how do you think? Thinking is by asking questions and asking more questions and asking more questions. What's the very first thing that God told the Jewish people after they left Egypt? Said, Ki yishalcha bincha, when your child is going to ask you. That's why we have the 4 sons by the Seder. Everything is about asking questions. And asking is welcome. Yes, there is a certain time, there's a certain place for saying, we have to accept something upon faith, but it doesn't mean that you don't ask. Moses had questions of faith and he asked God and he questioned God. So there is a place for that, and I'm not going to get into that. That's not the point here. So when we employ, what we're going to do is we're going to employ some visual aids for the sugya to help us understand and to learn. Another important thing is, so the Gemara requires study, hard work. Sorry, a second. And deepening our appreciation. That helps deepen our appreciation for the Torah. Take a look at text number 1, page 173. Rabbi Yitzchak said, if a person tells you, I toiled but did not find success, do not believe them. Yagati velo matzati al tamin. I did not toil, but found success, do not believe them. I toiled and I found success, believe them. Yagati umatzati ta'amin. The Lubavitcher Rebbe encouraged children to say what he referred to as the 12 verses of Torah. And this is one of the verses that he encouraged them to say, to know that you have to work hard, and then you'll succeed. Text number 2. Hashem gave us the Torah as a closed book, secured with multiple chains, so that it requires much toil to discover the ideas hidden within it. This ensures that we do not study the Torah casually, but rather out of great love. For one who studies casually does not wish to exert or trouble themselves, whereas one who studies out of love for the material will exert much effort. So now, when I was in yeshiva, we, 13, 14-year-old boy being introduced to Talmud, but actually, we really even started studying the Gemara earlier in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And this was a term that was always used, the halt cup. Halt cup literally means hold your head in Yiddish, but it means to keep track. You have to keep track of the arguments, the aspects of the Gemara, study back and forth. There's an old Jewish saying, an old Jewish parody. They say that a Jewish man was on a train and he was approached by someone else, by another gentleman, and says, "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" And the man replies, "Stop bothering me, go away." You're taken aback. He said, "I don't know what did I do wrong? I just want to know the time." He says, "Well, let me explain. I'm going to tell you the time. You're going to ask, now, where are you going? I'm going to say, I'm going to this town. And so I'm going to say, yes, that's where I'm going. It turns out we're going to the same place. Once we come to the same place, it turns out I'm going to be obligated to invite you to my house for a Shabbos meal. When I come to the Shabbos meal, you're going to see you're a handsome young boy, and then you're going to want to meet my daughter. You're going to want to meet my daughter. You're going to fall in love, and you're going to want to get married. Then you're going to. I don't know if I want you to marry my daughter, so that's why I'm not telling you the time. Because how could I let my daughter marry someone that can't afford a watch? Anyway, so, but just the idea of seeing logic and how it can take you to places that you wouldn't even imagine just by seeing that original text, and you don't see that. Now we're going to do a quick review. This was actually supposed to be on a video, which I don't have. So we'll just go through this quickly. Text number 3. Arve Psachim Samach LaMincha. One must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover from close to the time of reciting the Mincha prayers until after darkness has fallen. Now the reason that we're going over this again, aside from the fact that that it's always good to chazer over and repeat over. But I want you to also note that I'm going to, at the end of our discussion today, I want to contrast the way it is in the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, as opposed to the way it is in Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. So if you remember, you take a look at figure 5.1. We had Rav Huna and Rav Papa. Well, actually, we had 2 rabbis in the Mishnah. You had Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, and each of them have a different way when it comes to other holidays, a different approach when it comes to different holidays. We have Rabbi Yehuda, who says that on other holidays it's not a problem to eat, and Rabbi Yossi says on all other holidays it is a problem to eat in the afternoon. And we said that first we said that maybe so now how does it go with Passover? So you had Rav Huna who said that although Rabbi Yossi rejects such a prohibition for the other festivals, he might agree that it applies to the eve of Passover. And so Rabbi Yossi, even though he says that it's okay on other holidays to eat in the afternoon, it could be that he agrees that you should be allowed to eat. That you should not be allowed on the eve of Passover because of its specialty, because of the matzah, or whatever reason it is. So that's why the Mishnah only talks about Passover, because the prohibition is exclusive to Passover. So which opinion does the Mishnah follow? The Mishnah would follow Rabbi Yossi, according to that. So in other words, again, Rav Huna is saying, Rabbi Yossi, who in the Brisa says that on all holidays you're allowed to eat in the afternoon for all holidays. However, Rabbi Yossi says that that our Mishnah is talking about Passover, specifically on Passover, you're not allowed to because of the specialty of the foods on Passover. Passover is really the only holiday that the mitzvahs of the holiday are specifically associated with food. I'm not talking about customs or tradition. I'm talking about the actual mitzvah of the holiday is about food. You have other holidays. Rosh Hashanah, the mitzvah is shofar. On Yom Kippur, the mitzvah is not to eat. But you have, other holidays. You have Sukkot. The mitzvah is to sit in the sukkah, to eat in the sukkah, but not what you eat. But the Passover is the only holiday where the actual food is the mitzvah. So that's why we can see that you want that it should be special when you eat on the night of Passover. So that's why we would say that Rabbi Yossi, although he says on other holidays you're allowed to eat in the afternoon of Erev Yantif, on Pesach he would say no. Rav Papa then says no. It could even be according to Rabbi Yehuda, even though he does not allow eating in the afternoon of other holidays, even though he does not allow it. However, there could be this distinction when it comes to exactly when, that on Pesach you should end a little bit earlier, where on other holidays you could go until midday. On Pesach you should end a little bit earlier. We said So therefore, it refers to the early start prohibition that applies exclusively to Passover. Then we said that's a problem because there's a brisa that says 9 hours, which means exactly 9 hours, and there's no difference as far as 9 hours or 9.5 hours, as we explained. And then we said, well, maybe that's an erroneous Mishnah. Brisa. Maybe that's an erroneous brisa. Maybe it's one that's not exact. And we came to the conclusion, no, it's not, because, as we said, it was presented before one of the great sages at the time, and he accepted it, so it's an acceptable brisa. So therefore, we have to say that according to the conclusion of the Talmud Bavli, it would seem that the Mishnah would follow then that of Rabbi Yossi. Now, keep this all in mind, that the conclusion, so Rav Papa did want to say that this goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now, keep this all in mind, because, as you'll see, this is completely different in the Jerusalem Talmud. But take a look at figure 5.2. This is the Talmudic dominoes. The brisa is accurate. The prohibition on Shabbat begins at 3 p.m. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no distinction between Passover and the other days. The Mishnah cannot follow Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi maintains there is a distinction between Passover and the other days. The Mishnah must follow Rabbi Yossi. So just keep this in mind, that according to our conversation, we need to say the Mishnah has to follow Rabbi Yossi, because again, why? Because Rabbi Yehuda says that you're not allowed to eat on any holidays. In other words, Erev, the holidays. And if so, why does the Mishnah say only on Passover? Because on any holiday, you're not allowed to eat. So, therefore, we say, okay, it needs to be Rabbi Yossi. We say, well, maybe Rabbi Yehuda makes a distinction between the exact time of when you're allowed to, and then we refuted that and said, you can't say it makes a difference with the exact time. So we came to the conclusion that the Mishnah has to be according to Rabbi Yossi, who says, on most Erev holidays, you are not allowed to eat. I'm sorry, most Erev holidays you're allowed to eat. On Erev Pesach, you're not allowed to eat in the afternoon. Yeah. As I pointed out, a good example of this, although it's not exactly, this is going Yontif into Shabbos, but you have over here this year, you have in 3 weeks you have Purim. Purim is going right into Shabbos. You have some questions that come up. Another important aspect is that we have to always assume that just because something is right doesn't mean it's obvious. And actually, when something is obvious, it actually adds more to the question. What do I mean by that? So if the Mishnah is stating something that's obvious, so let's give an example. If I tell you that grass is blue, okay? If I tell you that grass is blue, and imagine you have a Mishnah that says grass is blue. You're right away going to ask a question. What do you mean grass is not blue? Okay. So now I have to explain how grass could be blue. Now, what if I tell you that grass is green? What if the Mishnah tells you grass is green? Then I say, 1 second. Is this a trick here? Why are you telling me that the grass is green? I already know that the grass is green. So now we had this example, if you remember, with regards to the food bank. That you have to feed the poor for Pesach. So, of course, you have to feed the poor for Pesach. I mean, why would I think that for every Shabbos, you have to feed the poor? When it comes Pesach, let them starve. Obviously, you have to feed the poor. So he said, no. As actually, there is a law that says that you shouldn't get over, your hand shouldn't be too loose in giving when it comes to when it comes to the holidays. Yes, it's a holiday. They have to celebrate. They have to, it has to be Simchas Achag, but it doesn't mean that you have to place that burden on the whole community. Give them enough to eat, but that's it. So now, when matzah is $30 a pound for a box of shmura matzah, so I'll really be giving that to them. And now you have a dilemma. And so therefore, we tell you, yes, you actually should be giving that to them. So the food bank should be collecting And then actually, in Jewish communities, they collect extra on Erev Pesach. It's called Kimcha de Pischa. It's literally called wheat for Pesach, which is collection of food, money to give out for Pesach, because Pesach is a very expensive holiday. However you slice it, you can't slice the matzah. So this is this is the idea of the obvious. Okay. Now this method usually is used to construct an argument that we know is ultimately wrong, but nevertheless plausible. So, for example, we now give a example. So that was the example that we gave. But going back to the grass is green example, if you were the Talmud and you read that the grass is green, and the Talmud asks, well, it's obvious. What would you answer? It's obvious? Okay. Anybody ever lived up north in the winter? Is the grass always green? Yeah, that's the land. Even over here, the grass is not always green. So, again, so that's what I'm saying. It's not saying something's wrong, it's stating the obvious. So the answer is maybe we're talking about in Chicago in the wintertime. And then the Gemara would say, well, yeah, but Chicago, even in the winter, you still find green grass or whatever it is. Right? This is just a made up situation. But again, we're coming to bring out a conclusion of something that based on the obvious. There's also the idea of asking to just to find things, and then through the different questions that come up, we could actually learn different laws. So we're going to now learn a sugya. We're going to learn a sugya. So what happens is you have the original argument, you have the counter argument, and then what ends up happening is we could actually bring the halacha, the law, into more understanding, into sharper focus based on what we've learned. So let's introduce the sugya, right? What does sugya mean? No, what does sugya mean? Talmudic discussion. So we're going to look at a sugya now from the tractate of Nezikin. Nezikin means damages. We're going to look on page 179. So remember, you got a halt cup, and you got to assume that nothing is obvious, and everything could be asked. Or as I think I put it once before, the Mishnah, the Gemara plays dumb. Right? There's nothing that can't be asked. There's nothing that's assumed. You know what assume means? If you break up the word, right? So there's no assuming. Everything has to come with understanding, and it has to be clear. So we have to halt cup. We have to constantly ask questions, to question the premise, develop a richer understanding. And then this goes step by step. And this is how the Gemara goes. Now, Nezikin means damages. It's the tractate of damage, but it's actually broke up into three tractates because there's too many laws of damages. We just read this last week, Parsha, Mishpatim, where many of those laws of damages are found. The first one is called Baba Kama, okay, which means the first gate. The second one is called Baba Metzia. The middle gate of Baba Kama talks about damages that are done, from in different situations that someone does, or someone, things that some people do to another. Baba Metzia can discuss things like loans, bailments, lost objects, things like that, employing contracts. And then you have Baba Basra, which means the last one, which is primarily about real estate, transactions, property rights, and things like that. Having rights to things is the third one, Baba Basra. So if you want to know why there's so many good Jewish real estates, guys, it's because they learn Baba Basra really, really well. So again, Baba Kama, torts and claims and damages. Baba Mtia, loans, bailments, found items, and employment contracts. Baba Basra, property rights, zoning regulations, and real estate transactions. Now, we're going to focus our sugya in Baba Metzia. This is what it looks like on the page. Okay, if you were to open it up and study the Gemara like that, that's what it would look like. Now, we're going to be nice to you, and we're not going to do it that way, but we're going to try and make it a little bit more visual. If you want, you can look on your page 199, and you have what the actual sugya looks like in a page of Gemara. Okay, that's what the page actually looks like. Now, when I was in, I think, sixth grade or seventh grade, when we started learning Gemara, this is how we learned it. We learned it in a page that looks like this. My son, Shimshin, or Mendy, I think Mendy and Shimshin are both learning this in seventh grade, this actual sugya. And they're learning it like this, on a page like that. So when we're going through this, just know that this is what our seventh graders are learning. Take that how you want. Okay, so let's take a look at text number 5. This is about someone that has hired workers. Okay, there's laws. Every aspect, remember, we said every aspect of Jewish life has laws in Torah, is dictated by Torah. How you hire workers is also, it has to be done in an honest way. You have to pay on time. It's a mitzvah to pay on time. There's mitzvahs associated with how you hire. You have to be honest, etc. If one hired workers, but they deceived each other, and they deceive each other, the parties have no claim of liability against each other. They merely have a right to complain. Which means, how to say, sorry, Charlie? If one hired a donkey driver or porter to fetch canopy posts or wedding funeral flutes, or workers to raise flax from the soaking pit, or any other task involving something that will be lost if the task is not performed immediately, and they cancel, the individual may hire replacement workers at their expense. And this is obviously 2 very relevant laws. One is if you hire workers and they deceive the other, you have no party claim against them. They merely have a right to complain. What exactly is that talking about? That's what we're going to talk about. Because as we're going to see, seemingly it's a cancellation, but not necessarily. Now, the second one is where it's clearly a cancellation. They cancel something, and you're making a party, and you hire a video man, you hire the flower lady, and they don't show up. So, according to this law in the Mishnah, you could hire someone else and make them pay. And you could take them to a Beth Din, to a rabbinical court, and you could demand them to get paid back for whatever it was. Okay, we're going to be focusing primarily on the first part. So the thing is that we're talking about canceling the employers. So this is clearly talking about cancellation. But what's the first part saying? From the context, it may be also that they're canceling. So if I hire workers, but they canceled on them, the parties have no claim of liability against each other. But the problem is the Mishnah uses a different word, which is being translated here as deceiving, hitu, which means deceiving. Okay, so what does it mean that if you deceived each other, then they don't have claim? What exactly are we talking about? Deceived in what way? Are you saying that if they canceled, that was a deception? That I said I'm going to come and I didn't actually come? Well, the end of the Mishnah tells us that you could actually get them to pay for that. You could actually force them to pay for that. So could it be maybe they changed their minds? Are there deceptions? So the Gemara initially chooses to set this aside and assume that and assume what deceived means. So let's take a look. If the employer, okay, so now we see it means deception. So now we need to find a case where they were deceived. The workers were deceived. Someone was deceived. Actually, we don't know who. They deceived each other. And someone has no claim against the other. Okay. So for discussion's sake, we'll say that they should have been paid 4 zuz and they ended up getting paid 3 zuz. Now you say, if you promise someone to pay them 3 zuz and 4 zuz an hour, we promised them to pay them, we're just using the term zuz because that's the Talmudic, currency. So if you promise them to pay 4 zuz an hour and you pay them 3 zuz an hour, that's not deception. That's fraud. You lied to them.
But the subcontractor was hiring and not the boss.
Wait, there's a subcontractor here? Where did it say that?
I heard this friend.
Okay, we didn't say that yet. You're getting ahead. Let's do this piece. Let's do this piece by piece. Yeah, we gotta take this piece by piece. We can't jump ahead. So the Gemara has this puzzle over here, and you see we're going to go through this one by one. So as you read the first answer, how can we solve this case? And again, I want to reiterate that the Gemara is not necessarily saying what is the law. The Gemara is recording the discussion of the Amoraim. Now, based on their discussion, we may find out a bunch of new laws based on the way they ask certain questions, based on the way they say certain things, based on the way they express themselves. So we have a Mishnah, deception of hiring, and there is no there is no claim, but we say there's only a right to complain. So now we got to put this puzzle together. So if you're saying it's 4 verse 3, then that is fraud. Okay. Another example, we said if you don't give what you should have given. Okay. Immaterial, meaning you said it's going to be wheat and it was barley. But then we're not talking about what you're actually giving the workers. You're talking about in other words, you asked them to work in a field of wheat, and it was a field of barley. So it's just different material, but it's the same. So they're paid the same. So is that considered? Maybe. But that doesn't seem like something that is of deception. So what we have over here is we're going to use this, and you see this on your sheet. We have this little mountain. Okay. We have this little mountain. The little mountain goes like this. We're going to send this ball back and forth. The top of the mountain is no legal claim and a right to complain. That's where we want to get up to. We want to figure out what this peak of the mountain is. Now we're going to have a little ball that's going to drop. If it stays on top, it's like a balancing act. If we could keep it on top of the mountain, then you won. If it falls to either side, then you lose. By the way, I wish I would have learned this like this when I was a kid. So if you have the ball up there, if it falls to the legal claim, it doesn't fit in here. And if it falls to the no right to complain, then it also doesn't fit there. It has to be that you have a right to complain, but we say, although we hear you, you have a good right to complain, you could kvetch, it's justified kvetching, but nevertheless, it's still not good. So, as some of you looked ahead, let's take a look at 5.2. The Gemara will now present a series of cases, each case in an attempt, page 182. Each one is an attempt by the Gemara to find a case that fits the Mishnah's parameters where the workers have the right to complain but no legal claim. For each case, draw the ball where you think it belongs, either perfectly balancing the peak rolling down into the valley of legal claim or the other valley of no right to complain. So the Gemara says, Hey Chidami, what are we talking about? Let's take a look for a moment in the exercise 5.1. Albert owns a field. He asks Barry. Okay, I'm sorry. One second. Hey Chidami, what is the case? The employer directed the agent, go ahead and hire workers for me. The agent proceeded to do so, but he deceived them. So now the Gemara says, okay, so we're not talking over here about directly hiring someone, because if you tell someone something and then you go back on yourself, then that's a lie. Over here, we're talking about a deception, but not necessarily enough of a lie to say that you're responsible. So therefore, we say that we're talking about a hired agent. And the employer is assuming that he will pay the wages that he stated. And then the agent says that he's going to pay something that he's saying. So maybe. So let's take a look again. Page number. Okay, so this is. Okay. Here's the ball that we're talking about. Okay. So here you have A, B. Okay, you have A tells Mr. B, and then these are the workers. Now, let's take a look to exercise 5.1. Albert owns a field. He asked Barry to hire laborers for specific work in the field. I did not choose these names, but we'll just go with them. And he stipulates the wages he is prepared to pay. Barry hires Charles and David to do the work, but he informs them that they will get paid at a different rate from the wages Albert has stipulated. Once the work is complete, Charles and David claim the wages they believe they are owed, and the discrepancy is discovered. What do you believe the law should be in this case?
It should be that variance.
What Albert told him to do?
He asked them.
Okay, but he didn't. But he didn't do it. Okay, but he didn't. And that's not the question. The question is, what do we do about these two guys? They're the workers. From who?
From that
Okay.
wages
Okay.
kick back and put in his pocket.
Okay.
Wages
Okay.
offer
Okay.
between Barry and the laborers.
Who says that he offered them more money? Maybe he offered them less money.
There's a discrepancy of, well, maybe it's it just says a different wage. It doesn't say.
It says a different wage.
Then you pay.
You're assuming he paid more, but who says?
Do that.
Okay, but the question is, it happened. The question is, how do we get to the fact of saying to these two guys that work, we say, I'm really sorry, you have a good claim, we hear you out, but there's nothing I could do about it. They could hire 10 lawyers, and the lawyers are going to say, I hear you, it's a good claim, but this is what it is. There's three ways. Again, one is to say that there is a legal claim, right? One is to say that there's a legal claim. One is to say that you have no right to complain at all. What are you hacking a chinik? The other one is saying, yes, you have a good right to complain, but we can't really do much about it.
Why?
That's the question. Why? Right. So that's what I'm asking you. So why?
They accepted the wage.
Who again? Who says? Who says? So let's take a look. Let's go to case. Let's go to text. Let's go to page 183.
So
Yes. How do we get to this? How do we keep the ball on top of this mountain? If you're saying they have a legal claim, that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. That's the second half of the Mishnah talks about a legal claim, where he says, you guys messed me over. I could take you to court. That's called a legal claim. The other is no right to complain, where we say, okay, what you're saying is just hacking at Chinik. The third one is you're not hacking at Chinik. You have a good right to complain, but I'm really sorry, it's not going to work out. How do we keep the ball on top of this mountain is the question.
yeah.
And so it's going to be something very fine. Yeah.
Even if he's getting a kickback from the employer, they don't plan.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. You're reading ahead. Okay, so let's go. There isn't the answer, as we'll see, because we're Jewish and we don't have the answer. Okay, 183. What is the case? This is the Gemara. Heichi Dami. This is a translation from the Gemara. Let's say the employer told the agent at 4 zuz, but the agent went and told the workers at 3 zuz. Okay. So now, as I said, so basically he wanted for himself a kickback. So the Gemara says, is that really a are we saying that fits the right to complain? Why do they have a right to complain? He told them 3 zuz. They agreed to 3 zuz, and they got paid 3 zuz. So what's the problem? As the Gemara says, Taramis, what room is there for complaint? They understood. They accepted the agent's proposal. So the agent said it's 4. He told them 3. They said, we'll do it for 3. And that's what it was. And this happens all the time. You have people that hire agents. That's actually the way most contracting works today. You hire a general contractor. He's paying, you're saying this is what I'm paying you.
Yeah.
And he goes and hires subcontractors for whatever amount it is. And that's the way most business works. If you don't like it, then don't use a general contractor. Hire the subs yourself. But if you're hiring a general, that's how it works. That's essentially what an agent is. Agent is a general contractor, or the opposite. The general contractor is an agent. So what? That's the way business works. The way business works, you're hiring a general contractor. He's hiring subs. It's not the business. It's not your business now how much he's paying the subs.
But it didn't say in here that they were general contract. No.
I understand that it didn't say. It didn't say at all who it is. The Mishnah is just saying. Something happened that they were deceived, and all they have is complaint. Now we have to put that puzzle together because we don't know who was deceived, how were they deceived, how did that happen, and along the way we're learning different laws as well. So now we know the Mishnah, the Gemara is telling us no. If you hire an agent or a contractor, whatever, and they go and hire someone else at a different wage, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way business works.
The thing is, the main issue is the workers accepted the aid.
100%. We're talking about the workers. We're talking about at the end of the day, this is the bottom of the ladder. How does the bottom of the ladder get to the top of this mountain is the question. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to try again. Let's try again. So now we say, okay, text 184. So let's say the employer said at 3, but the agent said at 4. Okay, so the employer said 3, the agent said 4. And he said the employer is responsible for the agent, for the wages. So now let's break this down. Um, so the employer quoted a higher wage, and the agent quoted a lower wage. No, that's from before. I'm going backwards. Okay, that's no right to complain. Okay, the employer quoted a lower wage, and the agent quoted a higher wage. So now, who was the one that said, who was the one that we're talking about having no complaint? So based on this, the right to complain, right, when we say no legal claim, right to complain, that would actually be kicked back to the owner. And we're saying, could the owner go to the agent and say, wait, you now made it more expensive for me. I didn't hire you to do that. So do we say he has no legal claim, no right? Or I would say, no, that actually falls into a legal claim. You did not do what I hired you to do. Now get those Jewish lawyers on the case. And, so it wasn't exactly the case. So now,
Based on what.
well, we have to take case by case. We have to each case in its situation. So now this is where we're at. So now we're saying this particular case. So you're saying the owner said less, the agent said and promised them more. Now, does the owner have no right to complain? We say no, the owner has a right to complain. You did not listen to what I asked you to do. So that's the next. So one second. Let's just take one thing at a time. Case number 3. Okay. Wait, what was your question? That's the question. Who's liable for the money? So now we're saying that he should have a legal claim, meaning that the owner should be able to go to the agent and say, you owe me the difference because I told you to hire workers for 3 zuz of an hour and you hire for 4. Now, we'll try and stick it just to the case that we're at. Case number 3. What is its a precise case? So we say, wait 1 second. Are we saying that the agent said that the owner is going to pay you more? Or are we saying another, take a look, case number 3, precise case. If the agent told them your wages are on me, the agent would have to pay the addition from his own resources. For as we taught in a brisa, again, we're bringing down a brisa. If one hires workers to work in his field, but directs them instead to his fellow's field, he must pay them wages in full, and he could then collect from the owner of the other field according to the amount of benefit he brought to the owner. So what we're saying from here is that if the employer said 3 zuz an hour, the agent said 4, then the agent, would now be responsible for that difference. And we bring a brisa that says that if you didn't listen to what I said to go work in this field and you went to work in another field, then it's on the agent to go and collect that money and to make sure that he pays up for whatever that was done. Okay. But the problem is, so standard wages are 4. Okay, so now the Gemara says, "Eloi tricha." No, literally means no, we need it. Or the way it's translated here, rather, will work if the agent told them, your wages are on the employer. So now, what if he said, the employer said 3, the agent said 4, he said the employer is responsible for the wages. I'm actually ahead on here. So the agent stated that the employer is responsible for the wages. And now they're coming to the employer. They come to the employer and saying, what was his name? Barry? I think Barry is the Barry go to Albert and said, Barry told us that you that you're going to pay us, so we want to get paid. He says, wait, how much did he say? That's way more than I had told him. So now comes the question. So now we're sort of narrowing our options. So now the Gemara says, okay, fine. So now let's say, how are they actually getting paid? Is this the way the system works? Does the system work that they go to Barry to get paid, or do they go to Albert to get paid? Who are they going to get paid? So maybe it would depend. Case 5A-B. I'm in here, a little lost myself. So the Gemara continues on. Let's look at the rate in which the workers are hired. And over here, the Gemara introduces another concept, which is, what is actually the going rate? What is actually the going rate? So, well, what if the standard wages are 4 zuz? And now, what happens is, so the employer says 3 and the agent says 4. The agent now comes back to the employer and says, I know that you told me that I should hire them for 3, but I cannot find workers at 3. And I had to hire them for 4 because that is what the rate is. That is what we're at. And so he comes back to him and says, look, this is the standard wages. This is what it's going for. You're asking me to hire someone for 3. I can't get someone for 3. I got someone for 4. So then he could come and say, look, the standard wages are 4 zuz. That's what I had to hire them for. So again, you're talking about a legal claim, whether or not he should be able to pay. But what if the standard wages are 3? And now he hired them for 4. Okay. So then you say no case. No case for who? So at this point, if the standard wages are 3 zuz, and he said that they should get 4, then we'll say for the agent, he has no right to complain and that he should get paid. So in other words, however you're going to say, if there is a standard, which the standard is 4, then you should pay that. If the standard is 3, then you should pay that. And whoever breaks that should have a legal claim, and whoever doesn't, and if somebody doesn't break that, then they have no right to complain in that particular situation. But again, the question is, how do we get to no legal claim, but you still have a right to complain? And so the Gemara talks about the Gemara now introduces another aspect. So now we're narrowing our options. So we know that the case must be where Barry quoted a higher wage than Albert was willing to pay. But since he said that the wages were Albert's responsibility, the workers can't have a claim against him. And since Albert never committed to paying the zuz, the workers are only entitled to 3 zuz from him. So they don't have any legal claim against anyone. They have a complaint against Barry, who led them to believe that they would be paid 4 zuz for their work. But he could say this, he said the wrong thing, and that's not what anyone gets paid, so why should I pay you anything? So they have no right to complain. So if it's 4 zuz, then you could say there's a legal, if normally they get paid 4 zuz, and he told them that, then Barry has to go work it out with with Albert. If the normal wage is 3 zuz, and that's what he told them, and yet they were told, 4. He says, well, nobody gets paid 4. It was a mistake. Albert asked me to pay you 4, and this is what it is. So the Gemara says no. What if there is no standard wages? What if you could get different prices? You get different quotes over here. Over here, you want to hire someone to do something for you. You'll get different quotes for different contractors. Case number 6. Let's take a look. Page 188.
Say something.
What is that? Yes, go ahead.
Teaching people to think for themselves. Like when people go to regular public school, they're never trained like this to think for themselves.
That's the point. That's the point of the Gemara. Case number 6. It would work in a locale where some are typically hired at a rate of 4 and others at 3. They could then tell the agent, if you had not offered us a rate of 4, we would have made an effort to be hired by someone else at the rate of 4. So now we're saying they could have got 3 and they could have got 4. And he is coming and saying, I told you 4. And now he's coming and saying, whoops, well, Albert told me really 3. And he says, sorry, Albert's only willing to pay 3. So that there's no standard wage. So if there's a standard wage, he says, look, I misquoted, but that's not what anyone gets paid here. I'm going to pay you the standard wage. So, but if there's no standard wage, you could say, you promised us this is what we should get paid. So if there's no standard wage, do we say that they have no legal claim and they have a right to complain, the fact that this is how much they're getting paid? Would we actually say this? And again, by each question, we're now actually learning another law. By actually asking these questions, we are actually learning another law. Because in this case, would this actually be a legal claim or not? Would this be a claim where we say that you have no right, that you don't have a legal claim, but you have a right to complain? Or will we say that you have no right to complain, or we say they have a legal claim? And however we answer this would tell us what is the law in regards where there is no, where it's fluid, meaning that it could go either way. Yes?
Did they get anything in writing?
A contract is a good question. It's a good question. Is there a contract? I mean, at this point, we understand that the stipulations were clear. The question is that there was someone that was deceived. So even if it's in writing, there's some sort of deception. So where did that deception take place? So in other words, the Mishnah says there's deception.
He said, she said, unless it's in writing.
So that's not deception. Deception means that there's something that's clear, that understood between us, and now you're coming back and you deceived me somehow. So that's deception. So in that case, it really wouldn't matter if there's a contract or not. Somewhere there is deception. It's like, well, didn't you see the fine print? Okay, so perhaps there's no standard wage, and then they could come and say, if you wouldn't have told us that, if the employer said 3, the agent said 4, and the going rate could be 3 or 4, and now he comes and says, I'm sorry, I really should have told you 3 because that's what I was asked to do. Albert told me 3, but I told you 4, and now Albert's only willing to pay the 3. So where would we put that? Could that be an answer? And so in this case, perhaps we would say that you have no legal claim. When there's no standard wage, you have no legal claim, but a right to complain. That we could say, they're complaining to the agent. The agent is saying, I don't have money to pay you. I was just hired to hire you. And there was a misunderstanding. I did deceive you because I should not have hired you at that price, but I did. But it's not like he's paying you something that you shouldn't get paid. I should point out as well that in Jewish law, you're not allowed to pay. You're not allowed to change the standard rate more than a sixth. So I should point that out as well. So in other words, you're not just talking, it's not a sixth, a sixth, a sixth. You're not allowed to change. Well, I mean, it's not, you're not allowed to change the price. You're not allowed to gouge for more than six. Sixth, a sixth of what the going rate is. A sixth, not six, a sixth. So so that's perhaps one answer. The Gemara is going to give another suggestion. The Gemara is going to give another suggestion. Case number 7, Ibais Ema. Alternative suggestion. We're dealing with landowners who can tell the agent, if you had not offered us a rate of 4, we would have considered it beneath our dignity to be higher. So he's saying like this. The standard wage is 3. And there are laborers and there's landowners. And the going rate is 3. And they did a work that's very good. And they did a work, the agent, they did a work that was equal to 4, even though they knew that they probably would only get paid 3. But they said, you promised us 4. Why? Because, one second. Because you know that we're not just regular workers, we're landowners. We know how to deal with this carefully. We know how to do things right. So you hired us expecting us to get paid more. And therefore, we did a better job for you. We did a job valued at 4, even though we know the standard going rate is 3. Right? So again, so the standard wage is 3. They said, but you hired us as landowners, not as laborers, because you knew that we're going to do a better job than what your standard guys do. And that's why you hired us. And that's why we thought you said 4, is because you knew that we are going to give you an exemplary job. And so now pay us according to our job that we're really valued at, what we're really worth. So at this point we say, sorry, Charlie. We understand, but you did the job that's really valued at 3, and that's what it should have been. It was a deception. You could say there was a deception there. He deceived them by telling them they're going to get paid 4, when actually he should not have said that. They understood it to mean that you are giving us more because we are such incredible workers. We're not workers, we're landowners, and we know this business. And so our work is really worth 4. Our work is really worth 4. Okay, that's another suggestion that the Mishnah has, that the Gemara has. There's another suggestion. Iba Isema, already the third answer. Okay, so the first answer we gave, that if you have that sometimes they get paid 3, sometimes they get 4. It's fluid. He misspoke. He told them 4, and they say yes. We normally we could get paid, but we would have looked for a better job to get paid 4 instead of the 3. That's the first answer. The second answer is that they are landowners, and they say we do exemplary work better than even the workers who are getting paid at 3, and we thought that the reason you told us 4 is because you were really going to give us more money because you know how good our work is. And to that we say, no legal claim. Now we're going to introduce a third answer, Ibayis Ema. Ibayis Ema literally means, if you want, I will say, which is what the Gemara is suggesting for an alternative answer, is that in fact, we are in fact dealing with laborers, but they tell the agent, because you offered us a rate of 4, we invested effort and performed exemplary work for you. So this is the third one that we're talking about, laborers, not landowners. In other words, they don't necessarily have the credentials to get paid for. However, we say that, oh, you offered us 4. We said we're going to work extra hard. You're paying us extra money. He says, whoops, I'm not really paying you that. So yeah, well, you offered us more, and that's why we worked extra hard. And so therefore, let's say, for example, if it would have taken 1.5 hours to do that work, and they did it and they did it less time, or let's say 1.5 acres. I'm sorry. Let's say within that hour they could have done 1.5 acres, but they made sure to work extra hard to get 2 acres done in that hour. So they're saying now we did work that's valued at 4 zuz an hour, not that's valued at 3 zuz an hour, because that's what we thought we're going to get paid. Okay. So they have no legal claim, rather the right to complain. Is this a good answer? Or do they have a legal claim? We say they have a legal. We say 1 second. Case number 8. Is anybody with me, or we're lost? You're with me?
Yeah.
You're with me? With me?
One.
Okay, case number 8. Why don't we just examine their work? And if they actually did work that's valued at 4, then they'll have a legal claim. So if the standard wages is 3 and the laborers produce work worth 4, so let's take a look and see, did you actually produce work worth 4? Then pay them that, and then they'll have a legal claim. So how do we get back onto our mountain? The Gemara says, Rivka. Rivka means it is ditch digging. So what if it's ditch digging? Sorry, I'm going backwards here. Because ditch digging, so the Gemara says, what do you mean? Even ditch digging, one can discern exemplary work. You see, if they did a good job or not. The Gemara says no. This is where you see, like, sometimes you need creativity. It has already been filled with water, and the quality of work is no longer discernible. So if it's already filled with water, they say we did work valued at 4 zuz, and he's saying, sorry, I only said I'm going to pay you 3, and now there's no way of knowing. So then we're back on top of this mountain of no legal claim, but a right to complain. You have a good complaint, but you can't go to court over that. That's another answer. Okay, so now we're at so far how many answers? We're at 3 answers. Okay, answer number 1 is that it's a fluid market, and they said that we would have gone to look for a job to get paid 4 if you would not have told us 3. That's one answer. Second answer is that you're dealing with landowners who say we did a much better job than just regular laborers, and we should have got paid more. The third answer is that they said that we did the value of work of 4, and there's no way to be able to discern whether or not that value actually happened. So now the Gemara says, okay, now this is all with the assumption that number 1, he hired agent, right? That he hired the GC. Number 2, it's the assumption that the GC is the one that offered more money and the owner offered less. Now the Gemara is going to turn everything around. This is real classic. The Gemara is going to say, who says? Maybe it's the opposite. Let's read case number 10. An alternative suggestion. We are dealing with a case in which the employer stipulated a rate of 4, but the agent went ahead and offered 3. True, we argued earlier that the workers understood and accepted the stipulated wage, but they can now tell the agent, did you not subscribe to the principle of do not withhold benefit from its possessor? That is a quote of in the verse of Proverbs, which says, do not hold benefit from its possessor. In other words, they're saying, yes, you told us 3, but you should really be paying us 4. Because at the end of the day, we found out that that's actually what the owner said he's going to pay us is 4, and you're only paying us 3. And aren't you a good person who wants to follow that law? Who wants to follow what the great King Solomon tells us? So this is another suggestion. This is now our 4th answer. Ibay Sema, another answer, case number 11. Okay, before we go, case number 11. Any questions so far on any of these answers?
You said case 10, dealing with no legal agent, no right.
Right, so no legal, I didn't move this. So employer was willing to pay a higher wage, the agent quoted lower, and they said, why don't you pay us what you actually said, what your boss told us to pay? And so we say, yes, you have no legal claim, you have a right to complain, but you have no legal claim.
But they should have took that back from the beginning.
Maybe they found out afterwards.
Right.
And so that's what we're saying. You have no legal claim, you have a right to complain. So now the Gemara is going to give one last final dab at this. In Hebrew, the word used for this is well, you know what? Let's first go over all these cases. So turn back to turn back to 181. This is the 4 answers. So answer number 1, the employer's quote was 3, the agent's quote was 4. There is no fixed wage, so the workers have no legal claim. They nevertheless have grounds to complain because they were led to believe they would receive 4. And again, in each of these answers, we now learn another aspect of Jewish law with regards to business. That's number 1. The second answer is that the employer's quote was 3, the agent's quote was 4. The fixed wages is 3, but these workers are not laborers. They have grounds to complain because they would not perform manual labor without the incentive of an inflated wage. That's the second answer. Third answer is that the employer's quote was 3, the agent's quote was 4. The fixed wage is 3, but these workers invested extra effort as required for a 4 wage. Due to the promise of receiving 4, however, they have no way to prove their extra effort. They have grounds to complain because the agent deception caused them to do extra work without extra compensation. And then the 4th answer was that the employer's quote was 4, the agent's quote was 3, and the workers have grounds to complain because the agent caused them to forgo an opportunity to earn higher wages. Now the Gemara is going to give one last dab at this. Case number 11, page 193. Alternatively, another answer, our Tana uses the term chazru. They canceled in the sense of chitu, they deceived. Which is as follows. This entire discussion is based on a premise that there was a deception. And the Hebrew word for deception is hitu, which means they deceived. But maybe this Tana, who learned this Mishnah, actually considers the word hitu to mean they canceled. And then the entire discussion is different. What are you talking about if they canceled? For we taught in the Brisa, continue on, case number 11, page 193. For we taught in the Brisa, if one hires workers and then either they deceive the employer or the employer deceives them, the two parties have nothing more than the right to complain against each other. when is this true? When the workers never turned up. Conversely, if mule drivers showed up but did not find the grain they were meant to transport, or if the laborers showed up and found the field they were hired to irrigate had already been irrigated, the one who hired them must pay their wages in full. So perhaps we're talking about not canceled, but that they were misled. And so this would be the translation of, instead of deceived, it would actually mean that they canceled. And if, once again, and if this is the case, then this is what will come out here. Employer or employee canceled on commitment and there is no material loss, then you have a right to complain. If there is a material loss, then you have the right to complain. And that would be this answer. Yes.
I don't know if this goes off the subject, but if you have the right to complain, because we're not supposed to like gossip and stuff like that. We complain to, and is it, we start complaining to everyone about what happened, is, what we spoke to do, I mean, like, how does that work?
It's a good question. It's a good question. Meaning, could you actually go and complain to your friends and go badmouth this person? That's a question about lashon hara, and maybe in this particular case, the answer is I don't know, but I'm suggesting that maybe in this particular case, you're talking about someone that's a liar and someone that's a deceiver, and you have the right to go and warn other people that are about to do business with him. Look, I got messed over by this guy, so just keep your hands on your wallet if you're planning to do business with him. So perhaps it's an interesting point that you're bringing up. Yes.
And when a wage policy, it's a verbal contract. I don't understand how there can be no right to complain.
There's always a verbal contract, the way you understand it, the way someone else understands it, the way the third one understands it. And that's life in business, unfortunately, right? Anyone that's in business could tell you, or anyone that's a lawyer could tell you this is what happens every day. Okay, I'm not going to spend any more time on this because we don't have any more time to spend on this. So I just want to conclude with two quick things. The first thing is on page 195, and this is going to give you an idea of what is the difference between the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, so you remember we talked to Mishnah and Pesachim. One must refrain from eating on the eve of Passover from close to the time for reciting Mincha prayers until the darkness has fallen. And in the Babylonian Talmud, we had this whole discussion. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and the challenges and the proofs and the conclusions. I'll take a look how you find this exact discussion in the Jerusalem Talmud. Text number 6. On the eve of Passover, from close to the time for reciting the Mincha prayers, etc. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. Period. Done deal. That's the entire Jerusalem Talmud discussion on this. Now, first of all, it comes to a completely different conclusion than the Babylonian Talmud. That's number one. But number two, as you see, there's no discussion, there's no conversation, there's no questions, there's no answers. This is the way the Jerusalem Talmud. So you tell me, all right, let's do that. That's the easy one. Well, here's the problem. First of all, you won't come to a lot of responses, to a lot of questions, a lot of answers. It actually gives you more insight. It's almost like if you have a person in a dark room that is trying to find the door. So if you turn on the light, you see the door, you go out the door. If it's in a dark room, you try and feel around and find that door. Those who are living in Babel, in Babylonia, they were living that life where they were almost in a dark life. They were in Gullus, they were in exile, and they were lacking that. But together with that comes the beauty of the Talmud. Let's take a look at text number 7. He set me down in darkness as those forever dead. Lamentations. Rabbi Yirmiyahu said this refers to the Babylonian Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud is straight. Babylonian Talmud is back and forth and questions and answers and questions and answers. And when we question everything, when we ask questions, then that actually brings us to true innovation. The Nobel Prize winning physicist Isidore Rabi, he was born a Jew. He told his Jewish mother, he says, is the one that I credit for being the scientist that I am. He says other kids would come home from school and the parents would ask them, what did you learn from school today? He says, but my mother would say, what did you ask in school today? And that, he said, is what made me a scientist. Asking questions leads not only to answers, but it leads to enlightening in a situation. And this helps bring more innovation. This helps bring more ideas. This helps bring more clarification in the issues that are brought up. And so this is why the process of study, dwelling in the darkness in Babylonia, it wasn't looked at as a bad thing, but it was actually looked at as a good thing. A way to continue questioning, to continue learning, to continue asking, as I brought out in the beginning of the class. This is the difference in the way yeshivas learn and the way Western world learns. And when you're just being fed information, so you could end up with the brightest and the smartest kids chanting from the river to the sea. Text number 8. The Babylonian Talmud is composed of questions and complicated analysis, which seems to conceal and obscure the Torah's intellectual light. Unlike the Jerusalem Talmud that uses direct light method, nevertheless, it is specifically through complex analysis involving a multitude of inquiries that we can reach the depth of the halacha far deeper than can be reached through Jerusalem Talmud's approach. So this is the metaphor of learning. When we're trying to wade through darkness, trying to learn, when we question everything, when we ask about everything, and when we want to know what's the right thing. So this is why we focus and we continue to study Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. In a certain sense, this is like a parallel of our history. Our history, time after time, Jewish people are always thrust into darkness, into difficulty situations, into exile. We have to fight through these challenges. But that also brings us to uncover greater and deeper powers that enable us to survive and thrive from everything that exile has endured to us. This is why people who go through the greatest challenges, they sometimes come out the greatest innovators, the greatest success stories that we find. So from exile, it's not just because just being punished for our sins, as some want to say, but there is the aspect of the exile where we're able to grow, we're able to become greater, be able to become stronger, be able to have a incredible effect on not only on ourselves but on the world around us. And this is the idea of the Talmud Bavli. Its deficiency that stems from the lower level of scholarship. Yes, compared to the land of Israel. The land of Israel is insightful, it's light, spiritually, it's enlightened. And that's why over there they say, look, we got the answer. You don't have to ask any questions, we got the answer. But in exile, when you're away from your land, you're away from your homeland, you're living in, this is the Babylonian Talmud. Over there, we're constantly struggling through the darkness. Eventually, when Mashiach comes, we'll see the light, and then we'll experience this in the era of redemption, that as a result of the exile, all the great questions that were answered from the exile over time, how that comes about. Text number 9. From the Rebbe, through the process of exile, the Jewish people will be elevated to an even greater height than the spiritual height they experienced during the former temple eras. It is therefore understood that this final descent is the beginning of and a part of the imminent ascent. And so this is the ultimate that we look forward to, that the history has been pain, but the pain of the exile leads to the redemption. That's through going through all these pains and difficulties and darkness, we're able to come to the ultimate light by going through this process of Golus. And this is what's represented in the Talmud Bavli, and this is why the Babylonian Talmud is one which we've been studying for all these years throughout exile. Okay, let's go to the key points to close up the class.
Lesson 5. How the Talmud thinks. 1. The Talmud has its own unique logic system that can only be mastered by experiencing the study of Talmud. This system has shaped Jewish thinking and culture throughout the world. 2. Hallmark of Talmudic thinking is the skill of halting cup, keeping track of a line of argument when the Talmud jumps between premises due to unstated logical steps. 3. Talmudic analysis values nuanced arguments that are correct, yet not immediately obvious, allowing students to explore deeper layers of halachic understanding. 4. Talmud study trains students to carefully consider arguments against the views they hold, thereby enhancing the comprehension of halachic principles involved. 5. Jerusalem Talmud offers straightforward answers, contrasting with the Babylonian Talmud's complex, debate-driven approach. 6. Babylonian Talmud's detailed questioning process is likened to battling through darkness to find light. The experience of studying Talmud teaches us to turn challenges into opportunities for deeper understanding and spiritual growth.
The Talmud until today is next week. So please join us, and that will close out our course. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Don't forget to go to myjli.com/Talmud. And hopefully you'll be able to see the video that we did not show